Finance budget review process. We're going to start with Department of Public Works, followed by Parks and Rec. So Mike, is there anything you have to distribute to us, or are we just going to go through the process here?
I don't, well, first let me start by introducing Maureen Topple, who's the new administrative assistant that took over for Darlene when she retired.
Welcome.
She's been doing a great job, and I don't know who knows or doesn't know, but Mary Jo's been out since September, so it's kind of been a struggle in the office. Maureen's been keeping up with it pretty well, so.
Maureen, do you know everybody here at the table? No. Bill, you want to just introduce yourself?
Bill Perry, I'm Alderman Ward 5.
Tony.
Tony Davis, Alderman Ward 6.
Mary Ann Knowles, Ward 7.
Deborah, I'm Ward 9.
Steve Shive at 8.
Jim Noble, Alderman at large.
Brad Will, Alderman, Ward 3.
Thanks.
Who did she replace?
Who
Who did she replace? I'm sorry, Mike, who did you say she replaced?
Darlene McGowan had been there for 10 years, retired last January. And I think, when did we take her in March or something like that, so.
And just as we start the process, as we have done with the prior budget meetings, questions by raising hand, listen intently so we don't repeat ourselves, because that seems to happen through the process of time. So I'll turn it back over to Mike.
I don't really have any handouts. The only thing I do have is, I don't know if you're going to deal with bonding this evening as well.
We did go over the capital plan.
Okay, so I do have some information. I didn't make a bunch of copies, but
Well, sometimes department heads bring narratives and sometimes they don't, so I just.
yeah, I usually have had them, and it's hit or miss. So
Okay,
rather than run a bunch of copies, I figured if any questions came up, I'd answer them the best that I could, with what we have. What I will say, going into it, is that this department is in the red in a lot of accounts. Something that really hasn't been the case before, but because of the extreme winter that we had, that really kind of put us over the edge. I'm really hopeful that until December, we won't have many storms, because right now we have a full shed of salt, but salt has increased. I think we're at $74 a ton now. Last year we went over on our salt budget by $40,000, and that's with new automated systems on 3 of the trucks. That's also with brining the streets prior to the storm. Last year what happened with the brine is because it had been so cold for so long, we couldn't even go out and do the preventative a lot of days because the ground temperature was too cold. So we couldn't use the brine. We used it earlier in the season and then a little bit later. But as the temperatures get colder, we can't go out and put the liquid brine down. But that is very effective when we can use it. But once we dip below 25, 24 degrees, it starts to get a little bit hairy. So we do have 3 trucks with automated delivery systems, which better regulate the salt use, and they're calibrated to put less salt down. As you know, we have a main priority route which pretty much runs around the city to keep everything open, and we try to keep those routes open: Broadway, East Chester Street, Albany Avenue, Flatbush, some of the real primaries. And we also have the emergency routes. But there were a few times last year where, in the middle of the night, we had to shut down for 2 or 3 hours because it just wasn't, there was no sense running the trucks and plowing because it was that bad, you couldn't even see out there at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, so. But we do work with the fire department and police department, and if we hear, that they have a call, we get out in advance of them, so, the foremen are all good, and, they listen to the radios, the foremen and the assistants do have, the police, radio frequency, as do I, in our vehicles, so we do monitor if in the event there's an emergency like that, and it's tough to keep up with. So with that being said, we also added fines like stone, it's not sand, but it's fine ground stone, screenings to the salt. So we even got more use out of the salt, because if we had not done that, we would have used even more salt, and like I said, we went $40,000 over budget. So I know salt is always a big deal when we're sitting at the table, and it's always easy to cut. But I will tell you, I think, before I got here, I know that we were probably at about 150 tons a storm, per storm in salt use. We've pretty much gotten that down to about 100 tons a storm through the different methods that we're using for application.
Mike, I just want to interrupt for one moment. I think we're referencing then snow and ice removal on page 111. That's where that would fall under.
Right.
Just so the council knows on page 111.
So, this year, I think, let's see. You were at 90, was it at 95, John, or?
What's that?
Salt.
Yeah, I'm looking at, there's an original budget of 95,000, transferred of 64,614. The revised budget is 159,614. You spent 131,223.89. So there's 28,000 and change remaining through December 31st.
Because in October, we had done a budget transfer of 64,000 proactively through the end of this year.
Right.
Tony?
So, you're anticipating 120, it's a 30,000 plus from what you had budget last year. Obviously, he's just saying you guys are at 131,000,
131.
so 125,000.
Based on $74 a ton for salt, because that increased from last year.
And it was even getting difficult to obtain. So, our shed.
Wasn't that statewide? That
Yeah.
there was a salt shortage? Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm presuming you mix the brine yourself, you don't buy a pre-mix, do you?
No, I forget how many years ago I came to the council and asked for funding to purchase a brine leaking system, and it was approved. So we make the brine, we have a storage tank, and my brewmaster is here. So we make it and we store it, and all that it is granular salt that we purchase from Cargill or whoever. And it goes through the hopper and through various pumps and computers and systems. It goes through and mixes and gets the solution that we need to make the brine. And we keep it on site, store it, and then when it gets down, it makes another batch.
Because last year, we had approved the brine delivery system upgrade for the existing truck that you had. So that was.
Right, that was the new delivery system. I think it was 13,000 and change. And what that truck does is a calcium magnesium solution so that it works. We pre-treat with that and actually move the hopper from the center of the truck to the left side of the truck, so that truck can go down the center of the road and spread and get the center of the road. So we can only make, only have to make one pass until we get through our final cleanup. But, there again, you can go out and see where we use that during, during the storm. I mean, it all works.
And it does seem to be pretty effective.
You know storms come, see that white spray.
Yeah, you can see that. When you determine, you spray that when you know the storm's coming, right, it's about this.
Yeah, well, we keep close watch on the weather. And the nice thing about this system is, you can put it, if there are a couple storms, we'll apply it on a Friday. And you can pretty much get all the routes done day and a half. And if we get a snowstorm or something like that over the weekend, and if it's an inch and a half, there have been a couple times we haven't even had to send trucks out. So it's a savings, in fuel, savings in manpower, and then carrying the trucks. So, plus this system is out in advance of the storm. The guy's on straight time as opposed to overtime. And we're doing it when the sun is shining.
Any questions on salt and sand, council members?
So it's not as though we're not trying to conserve. It's just that the winters have been.
Well, nothing else, you had to conserve because there was no salt, so either way it was a.
Yeah, well,
Using
all
proper-
this, fortunately, we have good rapport with other municipalities, and we all work together, contiguous towns. And so if somebody gets a little short, you send a truck or two, and then when they get it, they send it back, and so.
There's regulations from the state, there's no price gouging in times of shortage. Yes, no?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Just asking. It would be good to have something like that in place in emergencies.
Do you want to continue with your budgets throughout your departments?
Well, I'll go through and just kind of give you a summary of where we are in the red, and just so you know, this summer, construction season, we put down over 9,000 tons of blacktop, which I think is a record. Last year we were at 7,000 tons. I would have been happy to meet that. This year we're over 9,000 tons. That's with milling and paving, repairing storm drains, replacing manholes, did some work in the parks. So obviously it all takes time. So some of the work we can't just do it in an 8-hour day, so we run over. So those overtime accounts are either low or depleted. Our street overtime budget is depleted, administrative is depleted. Let's see, recycling is down. We're short-handed too, so if I don't have the manpower to get this stuff during, picked up during a regular day, we have to do it on overtime. So, all in all, it's worked pretty well, but I will tell you, years like this where we got so much blacktopping done, I think, the guys probably wanted to throw me in front of the roller, every time I told them we're going to do another street, so.
You got additional funding this year for your chips, correct?
Yeah, we haven't,
Which then increased your
right.
capacity, which will be paid.
And we did some drainage work as well on Robert Court that needed to be done. And some some sidewalk work,
Curb.
curbs and things like that, so.
The overtime and snow and ice is depleted, didn't, all right,
Overtime and snow and ice is, right now, Jim, we have 17,000 in there. 17,800.
Out of 85,000, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Out of 95. 10 was put in. 10 was put in, so the budget's up to 95, you're 77%.
so, you know, depending on the storm, I think we run about $6,000 or so in overtime per storm. And again, I've kind of changed the way we do things. We go out, we keep, like I said earlier, we keep the emergency routes open, so there's only a couple of trucks on, so we have, you know, we do have trucks in during the night. And, you know, we're just not running everybody all night. And I think this year I'm gonna have to sit down again, probably in the next, week or so, and meet with my management team, because with the funding levels that we have, you know, if we do get a big storm before January 1st, I don't know that we're gonna be able to, you know, to maintain the streets the way I'd like to. And we're gonna have to cut back some. So, and I know that there's no money to go to the kitty for, you know, so, you know, if we're not out there like everybody thinks we should be, that's why. It's, you know, we'll get the primaries open and everything else, but if we can't do it in the 8-hour day, we'll probably have a skeleton crew on until we get to January 1st, and then we can regroup. But, you know, unless we really get clobbered, and I have to get those trucks out, but, you know, if it's a few inch storm here or there, we're just gonna have to do the bulk of it, probably the regular work day.
I have a few questions on some of the items throughout the budget, so,
Okay.
if we want to start that dialogue, does anyone else have any questions that they would want to start with, or,
I just have general questions.
okay. Okay, on page 114, since city bus falls underneath your department, there's a new position there for it's a full-time bus driver,
Right.
which has been much needed in that department. It's been said time and time again when city bus comes to address the budget with us. You're in favor of that position there, or?
I am, and I believe that the mayor is as well, and that came up, I think, that was one of the things that came up during the contract negotiations, contracts, because she didn't have a permanent person, so they were filling in with part-timers and
And they can only
overtime.
work so many hours in the scheduling of it, okay?
Right, so,
Does that affect the big wait sometimes for like lunch and things like that, or they have to wait to get relief or something, or?
I don't know if it affects that as much, Jim, as it does the overtime. I mean, Tony can answer that better than I, but.
And she'll be here on Monday night. That's when,
Yeah,
our
she's,
budget review is. But since it
she's
fell on.
negative in overtime by 9,700 right now. And I think, you know, to get back to that though, I mean, they can all be on the road. So many hours too.
I think one of the issues, Jim, Tony can speak to it, is that the substitutes isn't actually filling a regular route. Rather, the substitutes were designed to actually fill in when there's a driver out. But what's happened over the last few years is one of the routes, which there was a individual who had retired, but those substitutes filled that vacancy, but yet substitutes running a regular route, and that was a contractual issue. That's one of the reasons they're hired.
On page 96, for your seasonal employees, that represents approximately 3.
Yeah, I requested 5. Because what happens, because we are so shorthanded, what happens especially during the summer, we're required to give people time off that they accrue and deserve. But when that happens, we run into scheduling and having enough people to put on the back of a packer. Primarily, that's for the sanitation side of the department. So often what happens is I'll have Ed Boyle doing all kinds of construction projects, and he has 2 laborers, and they'll be short on the sanitation side, and Ed Sweeney will call down and ask for people to put on the back of a truck. So what that does is it takes people off the street on the construction side, the bricks and mortar stuff, to go and pick up refuse. So, rather than put full-time people in there, I asked for some relief. I requested 5 part-timers. But because of budgetary constraints, I was happy to get 3. So,
Now, last time you had a part-time employee, that position is no longer.
I have a clerk.
No, it says, it doesn't really.
Line 112, part-time employee.
It's right under the seasonal one that we're talking about. We had one last year.
Yeah, I think that's just, that position, actually Maureen held that position before she became the
Okay.
administrative assistant. Now there's somebody else in it. I've decided that, with some other changes, I prefer not to fill that position at this time.
Which position?
That's the,
Part-time employee.
it's a clerk, it's like a, she does the time attendance.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
on the other page, John, does that include the benefits for that
No
employee?
benefits.
Why, there's a just difference in salary, that's on this.
I'm sorry, which one?
From 112, which was
Right.
15.7. Now go to the next page, 97, it says clerk 25 now.
Okay, that clerk there, that's a full-time clerk. That,
Oh,
so
so that's
on
another
page, on
additional
page
clerk.
97, that is a full-time position that was added.
Which one was it? On page
The
97.
three changes are, there's this addition of the seasonal employees, the elimination of the part-time line, and then the addition of a clerk, a full-time clerk.
Not clerk, but regular clerk.
And where's she from? She's new, right?
Who's that?
A new clerk you have, proposed.
Oh, yeah, that would, that's the full.
And what would her duties
Well, what I'd like her to do is take over some of the time attendance.
be? Okay, so she would be doing the part.
She would be doing that. She would be doing probably some of the park stuff that comes into us. And also, I would like for her to do more on the sanitation side, clerical, on code enforcement and getting letters out, things of that nature.
The code enforcement would produce revenue, getting letters out.
Yeah, code enforcement would absolutely, the big thing with code enforcement, that I'm trying to get out there is education, before we just slap people with fines. Because even the totes, I try to get out and I the routes a little bit, and I see the totes together, and they're close to poles or signs or, you know. So what that does is it slows us down. So I just had Ed put, you know, get a letter together, and we put a letter out to educate people to please separate the totes, because the machine has to get in and pick it up, keep it away from the poles, keep it away from the cars.
The wind blows.
So, you know, there's a lot more that we could and should be doing, and frankly, we're getting a lot of crap in the recycling, and we need to educate people about that. And I really don't want to see that single stream go by the wayside because it's contaminated. And I really want to start fining people heavily for contaminated recycling, because it could jeopardize our whole program.
Yeah.
I have a question, just going back to the vacation time and seasonal employees. You stagger your vacations, right? You can't have 5 people out on one.
We do stagger them, Deb, and contractually, they're supposed to have their time to us by, what is it, Ed? May 15th, you know, for the whole year. And it's up to, I used to sit in on it, but now basically the 2 assistants and the foreman go through it, and they do stagger. But what happens, you have the call-outs, you know, the sick time, or, you know, the vacations, and what, you know, whatever else comes up. So on any given Monday, or any given Friday, or, you know, people, so.
That's to be understood, I just want initially off the top. For
Oh, yeah,
vacations,
absolutely, they're
staggered.
they are.
Okay. You can't help the other, but the staggered vacations, you can plan ahead for that somewhat. Okay.
I have got 2 questions. Back to this part-time employee. So you want to get rid of the part-time employee, and the part-time employee did time and attendance,
Correct.
and did they do the clerical for sanitation? I'm
Can
just trying to, no, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, you want to get rid of the part-time employee and make a full-time clerk. So we're looking at 15,200 versus now another 10,000 to make someone a full-time, and I'm just trying to figure out if that's part-time employee do the same things with this full-time clerk that you want.
Tony, when we're done with this, I'm going to ask to go into executive session, and I'd be happy to explain some of the other personnel changes I'd like to.
Okay. All right, good enough. And then my other question then is the account clerk. What does the account clerk do? That the full-time clerk. Okay.
That's Joan, right? She handles billing. A lot of the people that come in off the street, she's in the office. We have a public contact office, which is on the first floor of the building. So in there, they hand out the permits for the furniture pickup and things of that nature. She answers the phone. She does the billing currently for a lot of the code enforcement. There really is enough for her and another employee to do the code enforcement, and there are a few other things too that they're kind of going by the wayside and they really shouldn't be. And I've had conversations with John, and since I've been in this office as the superintendent, we've increased fees. We've 2 years ago now, I think we imposed new fees for excavating the streets. We have to manage that. My assistants or myself, my safety officer, it's kind of all hands on deck, whereas people were cutting up city streets all over the place and we weren't getting a red cent for it.
Okay.
And we went through the code, we made recommendations to the council approved them, it's working. I think, we're probably about $20,000 in fees done, or I think we're in there for about $30,000 in fees this year. So where we weren't getting these fees before, we're getting them now. So, but I have to have the people to track them and, you know, and get them out there and receive them and all that. So there are other fees that we could be capturing that we can't because we don't have the staffing to do it, so.
I have
No, I was just gonna say, does it make sense to go into executive session now and maybe some of our questions more focused afterwards? Yeah, since
I think it would be.
Mike indicated that he's gonna request that.
Yeah.
Do you feel the time is now to do that on phone?
It may make some of the things clearer. You know, I really need to be candid about some of the operations that I think could run a little smoother
I
through
have a
some of the
motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
May I ask?
Executive session, what?
Public to leave?